Sophie Cunningham's response to all this, in terms of her tweets, like, if you guys didn't see Sophie Cunningham's retweets, Sophie Cunningham obviously responded with the shrug Instagram post, but has responded to the petition by just retweeting a freaking post about her jersey being sold out. That is a response. That is quote tweeting her the petition. Like, that is the best way of going about it.
They launched a petition to ban Sophie Cunningham, claiming that she is some sort of Marvel villain. To put it plainly, her response was a highlight reel with extra sauce rather than an apology. If you were expecting her to cry, you were mistaken. She brought her attitude and a microphone drop so loud that it reverberated throughout the WNBA. This isn't damage control, it's diva-level dominance. You won't believe how Sophie transformed cancel culture into comic gold, so fasten your seatbelt.
I need to talk about this right here. So yesterday's game was obviously funny. Yesterday's game was obviously crazy. But have you guys not seen the petition? The petition, lads. So if you guys didn't see, obviously, there is the Dallas Wings fan page. Take the All-Star game out of Indiana. I'm serious. This is about player safety. Dude, don't worry. Neither JC or Marina is making the All-Star team. Players will be safe. The only player on the Dallas Wings that's going to make the All-Star team is Paige Becker.
She retweeted the petition as if it were fan mail after laughing mid-lunge, because Sophie Cunningham isn't just unconcerned. She's now living off the drama as if it were her before protein drink. She leaned in with the kind of energy that says, "You rang. This isn't a redemption arc. This is full-blown retaliation, but with glitter in a crossover," as they attempted to portray her as the antagonist in some overhyped basketball soap opera.
All-Star break in Indiana, and I'm like, man, Dejanay Carrington needs to work her way back into the starting lineup for the worst team in the WNBA before she even thinks about being an All-Star this year. But yeah, it is hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious.
It was the digital equivalent of the queen of petty land cracking her knuckles and yelling, "Let's dance." And that tweet. Oh, she did more than simply retweet it. She sanctified it like a royal decree. Because you must be new here if you believed she would shrink under the pressure of public outrage. Sophie Cunningham retaliates with tempo, passion, and a well-placed side-eye instead of folding.
Now everybody knows who Sophie Cunningham is. Everybody wants a piece of Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey is the #1 selling jersey in the WNBA. Sold out. Now, why is that significant? I'll tell you. Because her jersey surpassed the all-time woman, Caitlin Clark. The most popular woman ever in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, got her jersey surpassed by Sophie Cunningham. Why? Because Sophie Cunningham stood up for Caitlin Clark.
The petition itself is a masterpiece of pearl-clinging hysteria, with fans yelling for bans like it's a dystopian version of American Idol, where you get kicked off for being too self-assured instead of singing. However, Sophie isn't dirty. Rather, she's reactive. There's a difference between chaos and consequence, and people seem to forget that when she gets physical, it's almost always because someone else got messy first. She's not throwing the first punch. She's just repaying the favor with interest and a little extra spice.
So I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm just saying. Sophie Cunningham stood on business. So all these damn petitions and all these little stupid things they're trying to do, these little freaking fines, we don't care about none of that. Now, just like Rachel said, your boy John Liquidator, I'm not condoning any violence whatsoever. But what I can tell you is that Sophie Cunningham stood on business and did the human thing to do.
Because if you mess with her teammates, Sophie will go all medieval and attack you like a human freight train driven by loyalty and rage. It's not about the birds, it's about family. The league can argue about the rules all day long, but when someone attacks her girls, Sophie doesn't ask questions. Instead, she makes statements, and all of a sudden, Sophie Cunningham has emerged as the WNBA's most unlikely fan favorite, not just for the Fever Dream Brigade, who cling to Caitlin Clark as if she were a one-woman revolution, but for everyone else. Sophie is the anti-hero we didn't know we needed. She has the body-checking aggression of a linebacker, the Twitter savvy of a meme lord, and the emotional range of a woman who's had enough. It's a Cinderella story, except instead of being silenced, she turned into a highlight reel full of vengeance, wearing sneakers, body-checking defenders, and calling out hypocrisy mid-aim. She lashed out not out of resentment, but because she had had enough of the narrative for months, watching from the sidelines while her teammate Caitlin is thrown to the wolves, every move scrutinized, every bump branded as a conspiracy.
Now everybody knows who Sophie Cunningham is. Everybody wants a piece of Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey is the #1 selling jersey in the WNBA. Sold out. Now, why is that significant? I'll tell you. Because her jersey surpassed the all-time woman, Caitlin Clark. The most popular woman ever in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, got her jersey surpassed by Sophie Cunningham. Why? Because Sophie Cunningham stood up for Caitlin Clark. She did.
The double standards were practically dripping from the arena lights when Fever players got physical, passionate, and gritty. But when Sophie raised a brow or cleared space with her shoulder, suddenly it was a felony, a crisis, and a moment worthy of a petition. However, on the timeline, Sophie's response looked like a war crime. This wasn't just a little contact. Sheldon entered with the energy of someone attempting to smash a brick wall with her torso. That shoulder wasn't lowered. It was weaponized, and Sophie took the hit, blinked once, and reacted the way any respectable enforcer would when testing her equilibrium. If you're going to test her balance, don't cry foul when she resets the scale. It's not aggression, it's calibration. But here's the kicker. Sophie never wanted to be the league's rebellious sweetheart. All she wanted was some uniformity, some justice, perhaps a set of rules that apply to everyone equally rather than being changed every night based on Twitter trends and jersey color. However, the moment she realized the bullies weren't going away, she made the decision to fight back, not just on the court.
Guess whose jersey sold out today? The one and only Sophie Cunningham, aka the enforcer and Caitlin Clark's bodyguard. Sophie Cunningham defended the face of basketball, and America was in love. I've honestly never seen so many people agree on one thing on Twitter, and they did last night. And also realizing that you wouldn't want to fight Sophie Cunningham after seeing this headline.
The retweet was just the start of her Retribution tour, where she has been entertaining audiences off-court with the skill of a stand-up comedian. Now, she has transformed her social media page into a carefully crafted display of shade clapbacks. She is Picasso, and she has a gallery of emojis. The fans have completely changed the narrative, and now people are wearing her jersey, stitching her plays into TikToks, and defending her as if she were the last hope for basketball integrity. It's not just a feed. It's a mood board for everyone who has ever been wrongfully called the villain when they were simply setting boundaries aggressively, and it's working. The type of athlete who doesn't require a public relations team to deal with criticism because she is the criticism. She is bringing the double standards into the public eye and emotionally attacking them with receipts, while the haters are going crazy because they don't know how to deal with a woman who won't back down. The more noise they make, the louder her cheers get, and every video of her retaliation is reposted like a trailer for the Atomic Blonde sequel. Every game is now a contest between those who are cheering for justice and others who are still holding onto their pearls because someone played defense with passion.
I am sorry, bro. That was honorable what she had done for Caitlin, bro. What did Rachel Dementa say? What did Rachel say about this?
If the refs are not going to do their job, the players are going to have to be the enforcers themselves. This game was chippy from the beginning, and the refs did not do their job. JC Sheldon.
When Caitlin was attacked, someone stood up and spoke up for Sophie. She witnessed the whispers, the cheap shots, the subtle fouls that no one wanted to call, and said, "Not on my watch." Sophie is not out here throwing elbows for pleasure. She is defending her people. And yeah, maybe it got physical, maybe she sent a message, But that message was loud and clear. You can push us, but we push back harder. And somehow in the middle of all this chaos, she's become the WNBA's new symbol of unapologetic power, not because she asked for it, but because she earned it on the court in the chaos. With every shoulder check and snarky tweet, she didn't start the fire, but she definitely learned how to cook with it. Because what the haters don't realize is that you can't cancel someone who's already cashed in on their villain arc. Sophie leaned and she made it fashionable, and now the very people who wanted her gone have to watch her climb the ranks, not just as a player, but as a phenomenon. So go ahead, pull up the petition, watch the signatures roll in like digital tears, because the more they protest, the more power she gathers. She's not just surviving the noise, she's conducting the orchestra. And if you think this is the end, think again. Sophie's just getting started.
I don't understand how she ain't got 1 million followers or more by now. I've never really had an opinion on NBA or WNBA because I've just never cared to watch it. It's always been boring. Since Caitlin Clark, it has been interesting to watch. And now Sophie Cunningham, she don't play about her teammate. These girls, this combo makes it so worth watching. I heard she's a black belt too. What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about it? You go, girl. Everybody go follow Sophie. Maybe one day I'll get to come watch.
And just as the smoke from the petition bonfire began to clear, the main event began. Sheldon was thudding towards Sophie like a linebacker chasing a snack, but Sophie was able to master the ancient art of momentum judo. She didn't flop. Instead, she strategically absorbed Sheldon's overcooked shoulder. Like a seasoned chaos expert, she saw that runaway train coming and decided, you know what? Let's make this theatrical. Boom down, she goes, controlled demolition, graceful, iconic basketball's version of a trust fall with zero trust. However, the referees stood there blinking like deer, realizing that the headlights were the rule book they had forgotten to read. If common sense had been in play, whistles would have sounded like a marching band on coffee, but instead there was a whole silent film from the officiating crew. Let's not forget about the referees, those glorified traffic cones and stripes, who watched Sheldon plow through Sophie and thought, seems fine. They were supposed to defuse the situation, but instead they brought folding chairs to the WWE match and failed to notice which team was being jumped. Maberry gently poked Sophie in the eye like someone doing blinded laser surgery, but there were no whistles, no repercussions, not even a timeout for poor behavior.
All game, folks. All game. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were getting checked. All game, the Indiana Fever were getting punked. All game, the referees let this physical style of basketball continue and continue and continue and continue and continue and continue. And eventually, Sophie Cunningham had enough. Oh yeah. Sophie Cunningham had enough. Folks, shout out to Sophie Cunningham. We wanted somebody like this that said, I'm tired of this. I'm trying to step up. It's time to step up. We're not going to get punked anymore. We're not going to get pushed around anymore. We're not going to get treated like a little sister anymore, like a little brother anymore. We are going to start being the ones that say, you know what? We're not going to start the fight, but we damn sure will finish the fight. Sophie Cunningham.
After that, there was a shove, not the courteous kind, that involved full-force shoulder physics coming from two different directions, like to a botched physics experiment gone wrong. Nothing happened, and Natata Mowbray was still in the game, allowing Sheldon to carry on with her own demolition tour. The irony of Sophie being left on her own like the solitary adult at a middle school food fight after the game. The league made the decision to give the finest possible impression of regretting missing your call. That's correct, the enchanted post-game enhancement was the oopsie. After watching the video from 8 distinct perspectives, we discovered that it was awful. Thank you, but where were you when Sophie was double-tagged like a character in a dystopian dodgeball match? Upgrading the fouls after the game is the sports equivalent of sending prayers and condolences after a house sire you started, but it accomplishes nothing. It's a public relations ploy masquerading as justice, and everyone knows it. Sophie needed immediate protection, but instead she received a crash course in how to distrust officials who dismiss serious wrongdoing as minor annoyances. The two-handed shove that followed the eye poke, which should have garnered blood and a technical, instead caused yawns. There was still no whistle or foul, just Sophie squinting through her contact lenses and wondering what century the referees were from.
What Sophie Cunningham did, she stood on business, bro. Sophie Cunningham stood on business about her dear friend, Caitlin Clark, bro. And that was honorable what she did, bro. That was honorable. I'm sorry, bro. I will forever justify this. I am sorry, bro. That was honorable what she had done for Caitlin, bro.
Then, to top it all off, Mabra's blindside shove was delivered. If you blinked, you missed it, but don't worry, Sophie didn't, and neither did the cameras. It wasn't just dirty, it was sneaky, the kind of hit you deliver when you think no one is watching except everyone is. Let's be clear, Sophie didn't retaliate. She could have, but she didn't swing, she didn't shove, she didn't poke anyone back. She let the chaos play out and remained upright until Sheldon made it impossible for her to do so. That's restraint, that's professionalism, and what she gets for her trouble is a highlight reel of being bodied while the referees sip invisible tea courtside. Meanwhile, Sophie performed the part of Piñata, and Mabry and Sheldon left as if they had just finished a joint effort. No ejections, no text. The league's great response was to upgrade the fouls post-game as if it somehow corrects the imbalance, even though there were only more minutes on the clock and an increasing number of fouls that the officials couldn't bring themselves to accept. Congratulations! Your trauma has been validated retroactively.
Now everybody knows who Sophie Cunningham is. Everybody wants a piece of Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey is the #1 selling jersey in the WNBA. Sold out. Now, why is that significant?
This is a ribbon for participation. It's the ultimate non-solution, like realizing you gave the wrong person a parking ticket and deciding to keep the ticket but frown harder. And it's not like this was an isolated incident. Oh no, this is a pattern, a playbook of inconsistency that's got players like Sophie doing double duty trying to win games while also defending themselves from tactical assaults that come gift-wrapped as competitive spirit. If Sheldon had lowered her shoulder on anyone else, say, a Fever player the game would have Stop the Sky would have darkened, the post-game panel would have hosted an emergency summit, but because it was Sophie radio silence at this point, it's not just incompetence, it's selective incompetence because the inconsistencies are too specific, too frequent, and far too convenient. If Sophie breathes wrong, she's a menace. If someone else launches her into the third row, just part of the game, the double standard, so thick you could ice a cake with it. And yet here's Sophie still standing still. Tweeting, still showing up to every game like the walking embodiment of try me, because for every ridiculous foul she absorbs, for every non-call that lets someone else take a free shot, she gets tougher, smarter, sharper. She's not bitter. She's bulletproof, the kind of athlete who turns officiating failures into character arcs.
Play with the Fever because, #1, you're going to play on national television every game. That helps your brand. You come to play with the Fever because you're playing with Caitlin Clark. You become friends with one of the most powerful, popular athletes in America. But then there's always that moment. And for Sophie Cunningham, that moment occurred the other day with a takedown, a grab. It was perceived that she was protecting Clark. Wasn't really that, but that's all right. Let perceive.
Fans aren't just watching the game anymore. They're auditing it, tracking fouls like courtroom stenographers, and demanding better because they're watching every clip, freeze frame, replay breakdown, and TikTok analysis of how a shove, body slam, and poke somehow equaled play on people. Sophie is no longer just playing basketball. She is the star of a full-fledged procedure about injustice, and the receipts are all over the place. This is about a pattern of passive oversight that puts players in danger while feigning concern in the post-game paperwork, not about one player losing their temper or acting aggressively. When Sophie didn't fit the pre-approved narrative, the league tried to box her in, but she broke the box, used it as a podium, and set the entire thing on fire with her next tweet. The referees have yet to apologize. The league wants intensity, but only from the right people. If justice were a jersey, it would be sitting on the bench with an ice pack for the next game. There is no true responsibility, only the quiet murmur of increased fouls and a shrug that suggests, we'll do better next time. Sophie Cunningham is rewriting the rules one collision at a time, having finished waiting for justice.